Hello and welcome to another episode of the Hooligan Report. I'm joined tonight by Cooksen,
Hello.
and I'm also joined by Cruyff.
Good evening.
We'll start with your mob, Cruyff, because we had the early game between Arsenal and West Ham, and what a game it was, because, I mean, you guys took a pretty well-deserved 2-0 lead, I thought, through some pretty magical assists from Alex Iwobi. But then Andy Carroll had a bit to say about the game, and it ended up 3-3. So how did you see it?
I mean, I thought we were all over West Ham near the beginning of the game, and the first 20, 30 minutes. I thought it was a deserved lead. We were playing very well, and it looked like it was going to be a straightforward win. But, I mean, it wasn't to be. We switched off at the back, and Carroll had his say, although I thought he should have been sent off. But I guess that's up for conjecture. But at the end of the day, I think a draw was a fair result. I mean, obviously, the disallowed goals are a bit controversial. I think the first one definitely should have stood. But as for the second, I think that was rightly called disallowed after Carroll's grappling on Koscielny. But, I mean, it wasn't to be. And I guess that, yeah, as I said, at the end of it, a draw is a fair result.
We talked last time about Iwobi and his place in the Arsenal side and his form this season, and he's had another terrific day out.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, it's good to finally see him getting games and showing that he wants to be in the team. He wants to play football. He works hard for the team, and sort of, as I said last week, players like Chamberlain, Ramsey, Walcott could sort of learn off his drive, but obviously it's too late for them. But it's good to see a young guy willing to give it his all and really earn his place in the team.
What were your thoughts on the match, Cookson? I mean, obviously it's a relatively good result for United in the sense that it gives them that chance to finish above West Ham. Yeah, how did you see it?
It's a very open game. I mean, very end-to-end stuff. I mean, Arsenal probably played better in the first half, I found. And again, Carroll probably should have been sent off, but for his haircut more than anything else. It was a shocker.
Just on you think Carroll being sent off, do you think his challenge on Koscielny was a yellow, a red, and the other? And if you only saw the yellow, what else do you think was worthy? Because I could count 3 or 4 challenges from him that he should have been booked for.
I thought he probably should have gotten one for the Koscielny one, the yellow card, which did he?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what he was booked for.
And he was probably having a lot of persistent fouls, which probably build up and, should have been sent off, or at least given a very final warning.
Yeah.
I mean, the rule of thumb that I find is that once you've got that yellow card, I think you're allowed one more foul of a similar nature, and then after that, there's really no excuse.
Well, there was one. He flung his arm and it hit Gabriel. Whether that's intentional or not, I guess you're jumping action, whatever. But you have seen the one.
Markovic got suspended for, what was it, 3 or 4 games by UEFA for putting his arm back in the Europa League last season. So yeah, he'd have a bit to say about whether that's deliberate.
He grabbed Koscielny on the second disallowed goal, which virtually held him back. And then another one, they were on the attack, and he sort of just barged into either Koscielny or Gabriel again. But I mean, it's when does the referee call it? Yeah. I mean, a lot of people were criticising the refereeing from that game on the board, but it was at least 3 challenges where he should have been carded, and he only got done for 1. And I mean, it makes you wonder. Sorry to cut you off, by the way, Cookson.
No, it's all good. It's persistent fouling. Should have been sent off. I mean, but still, good game to watch for a neutral. I mean, very entertaining, open. Probably does highlight some defensive frailties from both sides. But
which is quite interesting because, I mean, especially from West Ham so far this season, they've generally been quite good defensively, I've thought. So it was a bit of an out-of-character game for it to be a 3-3 result.
I think just the way we moved the ball around might have given them a bit more challenge maybe than what they expected, what they're used to. But, I mean, we were pretty lackadaisical at the back. Carroll just absolutely monstered us. And, I mean, it's just what can you do?
Absolutely. Another significant result from the weekend, we had Swansea getting up 1-0 over Chelsea. And I think it was last time we touched on Sigurdsson and how he's actually the third highest scorer in the Premier League in 2016, behind only Aguero and Kane. So he is having a tremendous second half of the season for them and is a big part of their revival. And he scored again against Chelsea. So how did you see that one, Cookson?
And, well, probably an interesting game. I mean, Swansea, you usually would back Chelsea to beat Swansea. I mean, they haven't lost a game for a while.
I think
Won the league anyway.
Yeah, was that their first loss in the league?
No, who's they lost? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, and Swansea, they've really had a good second half of the season. Because they did, I think, one stage look relegation threatened, but now they're just building. They've gotten to 40 points, and they're well safe from relegation. So for them, it's probably push up, try and get, 10th spot.
And that's great to see because, I mean, they've had a very good progression in the last few years in the Premier League. And there was, as you say, there was that point where they looked threatened with relegation. And I think they were even in the relegation zone for a few weeks. So it's good to see them sort of bounce back because they do play quite an attractive style of football. And I noticed Montero seemed to be giving Chelsea a lot of trouble. So it's great to see that he's back to his best for them because I know they missed him for a while when he was injured. How did you see it, Cruyff?
I think on the last podcast I called the Swansea win, so I'll be pretty grateful about that prediction. But I mean, it's as I said, Wales isn't an easy place to travel for a lot of sides, and Swansea have definitely turned it around since the Italian fella's come in. I forgot his name, but I mean, yeah, it's not a surprising result for me, and given the way Chelsea have been this season too.
And also, I mean, particularly because I think Chelsea are playing a weaker side at the moment. I mean, no disrespect to Swansea, it was still a tremendous result for them. But when they're starting with guys like, I think Kennedy might have started, and Loftus-Cheek,
That a very useful bench.
Yeah, and Begovic in goal. Is Courtois injured at the moment, or what was the reason for Begovic starting?
Not that I believe,
just
a change. Yeah.
Courtois has been injured a bit.
Yeah, I know he was injured a bit earlier in the season, but I'm not sure about lately. But nevertheless, great result for Swansea, and as we said, I think it was Hiddink's first loss as Chelsea manager.
Correct.
Sorry?
Correct.
Yeah. Man City suffered a bit of a shock against West Brom at the start of the game. I think it was Sessegnon who scored the goal to give West Brom the lead, but City were able to recover and eventually win 2-1. We did discuss last week as well the fact that they've been quite shaky and inconsistent, and this did threaten to be another one of those games. So it was quite good, in a sense, for City supporters at least, to see them kind of bounce back from that early goal and regain control of the match. So how did you see... Well, in discussing this game, we'll also bring in their result this morning against PSG, where they qualified for the semi-finals of the Champions League for the first time with a nice 1-0 win over PSG. So those two results have made for a pretty good week for Man City. So how did you see it, Cooksen? We'll start Cooksen.
Well, De Bruyne adds so much to that side that he's arguably gone past Aguero and is their most important player.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
Yeah.
And it's also quite funny because Thiago Silva came out and said the Premier League will be a step down for Ibrahimovic.
Oops.
Those sorts of comments before matches always come back to bite you.
Yeah. I mean, I think Cooksen's on the money there about De Bruyne because I mean, as I said on the last podcast, they've won 59 or 60% of their games with him and only 33 without. And he's become a real integral part of that side. He assists, he scores, he's good off the ball, he works hard. It's a whole new dimension when he plays.
He reminds me a bit of Sanchez for you last season in terms of work rate, and he sort of lifts the players around him with that work rate.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
it's
absolutely world-class player. Be one of the best in the league easily.
And when you look
top 5 player in the league.
Sorry, Cooksen?
Well, I was going to say it's also quite good for them because they finally reached the CL semi-finals for the first time, spending $1 billion. But
well,
again, just quietly, you'd reckon that either Barcelona or Bayern or Real Madrid should Barca and Bayern go through. Do you reckon one of them would want to draw City because that'd be the easiest team to face?
Yeah.
I don't think Madrid would have it that easy against City, to be honest.
Well, so even someone like Barcelona at the moment seem to be dropping off the pace just a little bit. It'll be interesting to see if they get past Atletico in the morning, to be honest.
Yeah, Messi hasn't scored in 360 minutes or something, so quite concerning for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely for someone like him. But, yeah, and Barca haven't progressed yet, so Atletico might do the number on them. I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
So that'll be quite interesting. It's good to see another English side making the semi-finals, because I think, is that the 8th English side, I think, to make the Champions League semi-finals? I might be...
Well, you'd assume was it Liverpool, Man
including
United,
European Cup, I think.
Arsenal,
Villa,
Chelsea,
Forest,
Villa, Forest,
Arsenal,
Leeds.
Chelsea.
Yeah,
Yep.
was Leeds? Yeah. So probably bet the 8th or something like that. I think I saw. So that's great to see for them. Leicester got a 2-0 win over Sunderland, which was another step towards the title, and for once they didn't win the game 1-0. Vardy with both goals in the 2-0 win. And to be fair, we were saying last time out that Sunderland is actually a pretty deadly place to go this time of year, because this is when Sunderland starts to go on that magical run that keeps them safe. So to come away with a 2-0 win is a pretty impressive result. What were your thoughts on it, Cooksen?
It's probably... Well, it's good for Leicester to win because, you know, every win's closer for them for a title, which is probably the impossible dream for them. And they've played some good football. I mean, 7 points with, 5 games to go, so... Again, usually all cliche, just got to take it 1 week at a time, and it's good to see Sunderland finally getting relegated.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I think, there's no truer time for that 1 week at a time expression, because for Leicester it's just a matter of getting those 3 points and getting one step closer, and I think it's 3 more wins that they have to get, or 2 more wins that they have to get to, I think it's 3, to basically mean that Spurs can't win the title mathematically. So it's getting ever closer, but they've got an interesting game up against West Ham, which we'll chat about in a second. But Spurs also managed to keep in the title race in a sense. They kept the title race alive with a 3-0 win over your mob, Cooksen. So we'll round off our reviews with that match. I think it was their first win against you at home in about 15 years or 13 years or something like that. I think it was,
Yes.
was it 2003 or 01? Yeah, it was something like that. So how did you see that one?
It was a bizarre game from United because we essentially lost it in the space of like 5 minutes. And some really bizarre substitutions. I mean, we'll put a winger as a striker as a winger, a winger as a number 10, a number 10 as a wing back, have centre backs as our full backs. I mean, it makes sense if you're on drugs, which I'm assuming Ben Hart was. Still, it's just...
Yeah?
It's just a really weird game. I mean, the only shot we had was from Martial literally pulling something out of his arse, which is probably said for most games this season. Again, just poor football from United, and Van Haal's game closer to getting the arse.
What did you make of the rumours? I think was it the Dutch papers suggesting that he would be given another year and about 80 million to spend?
I think we'd spend a bit more than 80 million, and if he doesn't get top 4, he's gone. He knows that. Everyone knows that, really.
Well, as in top 4 this season, you mean?
Yeah.
So maybe City will want to do the rest of us a favour and give you 4th spot?
And we'll... I don't know, we'd still sack him anyway. I mean, Mendes has got some players lined up.
So with the Mourinho incoming, would that be sort of taking effect immediately after the season finishes? I mean, is there any discussion about when that would actually take place?
From a legal point of view, I think as soon as top 4's mathematically gone, Van Gaal will be sacked. Someone, and Giggs will go with him. Probably. Someone will take over in the interim, or to the end of the season, if Van Gaal lasts turn. Then July 1st, he probably would start, Mourinho.
And then just on Giggs, because you're suggesting that he would also leave the club. he's obviously got ambitions to be a manager and presumably the manager of United. Do you have any sense of where he would go to sort of cut his teeth as a manager?
Just anywhere in the lower leagues.
I mean, I wouldn't
it's
mind
just
having a look at him at Hull.
Oh, you can have him.
Anything but Bruce, I think, at this stage.
It's
Just
yeah.
on that game, I thought the goals from Spurs were bloody great. I mean, the ball to set up alley from Ericsson was
Oh, that was
world class.
sublime.
And and Lamela should have scored with his header. I was watching the highlights and I thought it was in. But I mean, it's Spurs. The way they've been playing, it's hard to begrudge them of that victory too, because they've been playing better football, arguably, than Leicester. Really, it's just the draws early on in the season sort of cost them. But I mean, they've been a delight to watch this season.
And just on,
But this,
sorry, yeah, Cookson.
their supporters have not been though.
Well, some of them.
We always enjoy a nice kick while they're down. Nothing wrong with trolling.
Just on lovely assists though, you do have to give mention to Drinkwater's assist for Vardy's first, which was an absolutely brilliant ball as well.
Yeah, definitely agree. Phenomenal pass.
This is what happens when you get United players. They just do well everywhere else.
Oh, yeah, was he a United youth player, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The same with Danny Simpson. Which is why they know what to do. They have the Sir Alex
They've got
Ferguson
it in the
mentality.
blood. Yeah. I'm sure when they win the title, you wouldn't do a Faith, would you? With Faith, what was it, Faith gloating about Barcelona's success because Liverpool breeds champion players like Suarez?
They do well. They developed Suarez apparently.
There's a difference between doing it sarcastically and actually believing in it.
Yeah, true. We'll move on to the previews then, because there's quite a lot of games to get through. We've got all of the catch-up games from the FA Cup postponed games. Well, actually, before we get into those, we'll talk about one game that's on tomorrow morning that we haven't touched on yet, which would be perfect to discuss with you on board, Cookson. And I believe it's the United West Ham FA Cup replay on tomorrow morning for your mob. Do you hold out any hopes of getting through in that one, or is that sort of a dead rubber for you? Well, in the sense that do you want to get through?
I'd want to get through because we haven't won the FA Cup in like a decade and a bit. But will we? Probably not. I mean, I didn't even know what the team's going to be.
Sorry?
Who are they playing?
It's West Ham.
West Ham.
Or at Upton Park or Old Trafford?
Upton Park.
Ooh, I think that might be the end of the road for United.
That'll be a tough one.
Just play the youngsters. They'll do better. Pick Herrera, for God's sake. You know, I'm wondering where he is. Apparently he's been spotted on like milk cartons in Manchester.
It will be amazing though if you did progress and somehow got to the final. With all of the stigma and all of the issues with Van Gaal this season, if he was to win you a trophy with his final act, it would be a very interesting way for him to sign off.
Yeah, but realistically, it's kind of like the trophy is good, the FA Cup's good, but again, top four's probably worth more.
Oh, at least give you a bit of European football.
Yeah, but Europa League's might as well not even bother. I mean, I want to watch games on a Saturday, not on a Saturday night, not on a Monday night or Monday morning.
Yeah. So we'll move in then to the previews of the Premier League games. We've had some delayed because of the FA Cup. We'll start with Norwich Sunderland, which could just about seal the relegation spots, I suspect. If Norwich can win that one, that would put them 7 points ahead of Sunderland. And it would pretty much seal the relegation zone, I would suspect. What's your tip for this one, Cruyff?
I'm going to go Norwich just because I think it's at home for a start, and
it is, yeah.
They're probably just that tad slight better than Sunderland. And although, as we say, Sunderland tend to try and turn it on at this time of year, but I think being at home favours Norwich, and the fans should be right behind them and singing and chanting, which will hopefully spur them on and get them to the 3 points.
And Cookson?
This is where Sunderland start turning into bloody Barcelona, so they'll win.
It's to be honest, it's amazing that they're in as much trouble as they are under Big Sam. Because I thought when they appointed him at the start of the season, it would be a match made in heaven, so to speak. Because he seemed to sort of fit the mentality that they were lacking in previous seasons in terms of defensive football, and yet they've still struggled under him. So it's pretty amazing. But look, it's
They
a hard
just
one.
don't have good players.
Yeah, I mean that's the issue. They're not like Villa. They just sign a lot of average players rather than a few good players.
Yeah, that miss from Rodwell against Leicester, it should have been 1-0 Sunderland or 1-1, whatever the score was at the time. But it should have been a goal, and he blazed over the bar from 10 yards or something.
Yeah, well, Rodwell bundled a ball into the net with his hand against us last season to start our slide, so I'm not too impressed with him. I suspect it might be a draw. It just seems to have... It will be a tight, cagey game, I think, and I'm not too sure which side will break the deadlock in that one. Everton at home to Southampton is the next game. It's a game of kind of two mid-table sides that don't have a whole lot to play for. But how do you see it, Cookie?
Oof. It's gonna be a tough one, but I mean, I'll probably say Southampton to win because they appear to be in a bit better form.
Cruyff?
If Everton can score more goals than Southampton, they'll win. No, I think
That's the way that Everton play these days, isn't it?
Exactly. Just you score 4, we'll score 5. But I think if Southampton, as straightforward as this sounds, if Southampton can't contain Lukaku, Everton will have a field day. But if Everton are leaky at the back, it's all over for them.
Fair enough. Just on Southampton, they've had a bit of an interesting season. They started off a bit shaky. They were bottom half for a while, but they've sort of recovered and they're sitting on 50 points at the moment, and they're only 2 points behind West Ham. So they've certainly had a decent second half of the season, I would suspect. In a way, it might be beneficial for them because they might not lose as many players. I mean, the last 2 off seasons, they've lost quite a few players to, so to speak, bigger clubs. Of course, one of those clubs is sitting 2 points below them on the table, so that's debatable as to which of them is the bigger club. But how have you guys seen Southampton's season?
I mean, it's I guess somewhat disappointing from their perspective, considering their past 2 seasons. But as you said, they have lost quite a few players, and it's obviously going to take a toll. And I think Koeman has done well for given the circumstances, I guess. And I'm sure he'll look to bring in more players of a sort of Daily Classy mould, or Davy Classy rather. And I mean, or Yordi Classy. Sorry, it's been a long day. And I think they'll sort of. I think they're 7th, and I don't think that's such a bad thing to be, considering the stature of their club, their finances, their circumstances, and whatnot. So it's not all bad news, really.
And Cookson?
Yeah, it's just bad first half season, which probably does affect them. Firstly, I mean, those losses get turned into wins and draws. You're potentially looking at probably fighting Man City for the Champions League spot, perhaps even going above Arsenal. I mean, 11 losses, quite a huge number of losses. So, again, they're probably going to be disappointing, but 7th place, maybe eventually push up to 5th or 6th. You never know what could happen, and just consolidate and build. So, future's bright for them.
The next game is United up against Aston Villa, and it's one of those games. I think we used the phrase last time out as well. When it comes to Aston Villa, every game is, you wouldn't want to be dropping points to Aston Villa, and in some ways that creates its own pressure.
Who will play the worst football?
Well, that's the question. I was going to say, I mean, worst case scenario, Cookie, obviously, is that you lose to Villa, but surely you can get the win against Villa, and relatively comfortably.
It depends on, do we play players in their correct positions?
But even then, even then though, Villa are not good. Yes, playing players out of position isn't great or handy or helpful or whatever, but Aston Villa are potentially the worst Premier League side ever. And if you're playing 2 or 3 players out of position, yeah, it's not great. But if they're still quality players, there's no reason why you shouldn't be beating them.
That's true. We should definitely beat Villa. If we don't, well, sharpen the knives.
Yeah, it would be pretty much the death knell for Van Hal, I suspect, if you drop points, especially at home to Aston Villa. But I just get the sense it's Villa, especially that loss to Bournemouth, that there's no semblance of hope left in that side, and they've pretty much just all dropped their heads. And we were saying before, I mean, it's the sort of game where surely Villa just plays their youth players. Get some games into the kids, give them a bit of an experience of the Premier League, give them a taste of what it's like at the top. And then if next season you're actually drawing on some of them for regular games, they've had that taste and they have that hunger to get back up there.
Definitely, but I mean, Villa seem to be a backwards club, so it seems like a far too logical decision to make.
Oh well. Another club that's pretty much on the brink of relegation is Newcastle, and they're at home to Swansea. And if they really, if they want to survive, they really need to get a move on, and they really need to be winning this game. Shelvey up against his old mob. There's been some interesting press about Shelvey in the last few days, and about the fact that he doesn't have a relegation clause in his contract, and will be the highest ever paid player in the Championship on £80,000 a week if they get relegated.
Gee.
Apparently, like Neymar's contract was leaked.
Yeah, it's 75,000 a week, isn't it?
£77,000 a week.
Yeah. So he's on less than
A
Shelvey.
Championship player will be earning more than probably, the 4th or 5th best player in the world.
Yeah, it's pretty staggering. What are our thoughts on Newcastle? What on their financial situation and the prospects of falling into the Championship?
Maybe it's what they need, but I mean, last time they were relegated, Ashley still stuck around, so it's he needs to. If he leaves that club, they'll start going places. But as long as he's the chairman, it's not a bright future for them, in my opinion, anyway.
I mean, you expect at least most of their players to leave. I mean, Tim Krul, Colaccini, Colback, Wijnaldum, Sosker, Cisse, Lyon, Goffran, Perez.
Can you name any more?
Benalem? Mitrovic?
Said that.
Yeah.
Mitrovic would be one of the most sought after players, I suspect, because he's actually.
Would he though? He's a bit of a hothead.
Yeah, but he's at least looked quite good for them, and he's scored most of their goals in the last month or so. So you would think he would at least attract the attention of a lower half club.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, fair point.
So
Perez will probably be sought after by a lot of them. So
thoughts on the match itself?
I reckon Swansea might nick it.
Swansea 2-0.
Yeah, I might go Swansea in that one as well, and that would certainly, if Norwich can get over Sunderland, that would certainly seal the bottom three, I suspect. West Brom at home to Watford, pretty uninteresting game, I guess. No disrespect to the West Brom or Watford supporters, but because I know there's plenty of those listening into this podcast, but
got your funny pants on today.
How do you see this one, Cookie?
I don't know. They'll all draw.
Yeah, it's got that sort of feel to it, doesn't it? Cruyff?
Oh, score draw, but don't really care about the result, to be honest. I don't think many do. Sorry to the fans listening.
To the hundreds of Watford fans that listen in, I know that they love tuning into this. Chelsea at home to Man City could be quite an interesting one. I mean, we've just talked about the fact that Chelsea are playing a younger side these days. They're sort of giving the youngsters a bit of a go. And Man City probably still have a bit to play for, so they can't afford to do that. It's at Stamford Bridge, so there might be that element playing in Chelsea's favour. But how do we see this one, Cruyff?
game, really. I mean, I think De Bruyne back will be, De Bruyne playing for City is absolutely huge. He'll probably have a point to prove against his old team, and even though if it's at the Bridge, I think City will nick it. I think they're in the better form at the moment, and as you said, if Chelsea are playing young players to try and to blood them for the future, it won't be pretty if City go there with a full strength side.
Cookie?
Well, this seems like the type of game where City will be inconsistent and lose to Chelsea for some bizarre reason. So 2-0 Chelsea.
I think the point about De Bruyne's really interesting because it's really interesting from a Chelsea point of view to look at Lukaku and De Bruyne at other clubs doing so well, and to think that they basically released them because they thought they weren't good enough or weren't ready for Chelsea. It does sort of highlight that Mourinho mentality because was it Mourinho? I think Mourinho released both of them.
Yes.
Because I seem to remember them both playing on the opening day of the season against us. I think they both came off the bench. And it was quite interesting to see that Mourinho just has that little faith in youth. And you look at the players that are playing for them at the moment who weren't getting game time under Mourinho only 6 months ago. So it'll certainly be a very interesting one. I think City have a bit more to play for, and City should get up for it. But you can say that about Man City a lot lately, and they don't actually get the results. So it'll certainly be an interesting game to watch, I suspect.
If the Champions League tie is next week, which I'm not sure if it is, they'll have one eye on the semi-final.
Oh, the semi-finals will be next week.
I
think the other quarterfinals
sure?
are next week. Yeah, I think it's the other quarterfinals next week.
Are there more quarters to play?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, Barca Atletico.
No, that's tomorrow, isn't it?
I think the draw's next week. But
the draw might be next week. Yeah,
I wouldn't have thought
the games.
20th.
I wouldn't have thought the games were next week.
They come pretty thick and fast. We'll find
27th. The 27th and the 4th.
Yeah, you're right. And Anzac after Anzac Day. I apologise. Sorry, boys.
That's all right. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so Barca Atletico is tomorrow morning along with Bayern Benfica, but yeah, the semi-finals are a bit later on. Bournemouth against Liverpool. Bournemouth at home. Bournemouth have had a pretty impressive season, and they're still sort of grinding out results. But Liverpool are also starting to end the season on a pretty decent level with the 4-1 win over Stoke last time out. Liverpool probably to get over the top of them.
You think Liverpool have the greatest squad in the Premier League, so I mean, there's no reason why they shouldn't.
I mean, world class. I mean, what does Liverpool have? They have world class goalkeeper, best right back in the world, best centre backs in the world. I mean, Lucas is just world class midfielder.
World class, apparently.
I'll say better than Cruyff, Vieira combined. You know.
But no, you think Liverpool's hit a bit of form, and Klopp's I think finally got his stamp down how he wants them playing, and I think the players are starting to understand that. So I don't see why Liverpool wouldn't win.
Origi's also starting to look quite good for them. I mean, interestingly, I think he was voted the worst footballer in the league last year. Though some would argue that might have been because he had one eye on his move to Liverpool. But he's certainly looked quite impressive since he started playing for Liverpool. I think he might would he have made his debut in Klopp's first game? It was around that time I think I first remember him playing a game. So he sort of symbolises this Klopp era, but he certainly looked quite good against Stoke in particular.
Yeah, it's just he's been given the chance, and he's snatching it with both hands. So I mean, and good on him. It's a shame that I guess Benteke is being sort of shunted to the side because I don't think he's a poor striker at all, but he just doesn't fit the Klopp system.
Yeah.
He didn't even fit Rodgers' system. It's like just a waste of £30 million, which honestly describes Liverpool's transfer since
wasteful.
Forever.
Yeah,
just fling enough shit and hope some of it turns out to be chocolate.
Is that a racial slur?
No, it's trying to be like random, but
probably not the best time.
Oh, that's all right. Leicester at home to
Moving
West
on.
Ham. Moving on. Speaking of racial slurs, Leicester at home to West Ham. Jamie Vardy's in a bit of form. And
Chat shit get banged.
Okazaki would have a bit to say about Jamie Vardy's racial slurs, perhaps. But at home to West Ham, West Ham looking a bit leaky, as we were saying. 3 goals conceded against Arsenal last time out. Leicester still haven't conceded a goal in at least, is it 5 or 6 games now? So really sort of steaming on towards the title. Do we see Leicester getting the win here, Cooksen?
I think yes. They're in the mode where it's just they know what to do. Ranieri's not gonna worry. They've been in must-win situations before, like last year, so I reckon they'll probably win 1-0 or 2-0.
Cooksen? Cruyff?
Oh, I don't know. I think West Ham will really give it a shot, and if Leicester are going to lose a game on the run in, it'll be this one.
Yeah.
Definitely a difficult game for Leicester.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, Carroll's obviously looking like he's in a bit of form now, and I know earlier in the season, especially Leicester struggled with taller, stronger strikers, kind of monstering their defence, but they seem to have settled down a lot now. And obviously Pyatt's in pretty incredible form at the moment, so I think you're right. I mean, if they're going to lose a game, it will be this one. Those final 3 games of United, Chelsea, Everton that was sort of seen as their really tough games aren't actually looking that tough anymore, given the fact that Chelsea are resting players, United aren't in the greatest of form, and Everton are leaking goals left, right and centre. So this might well be their toughest game remaining.
Definitely, and we saw against Arsenal how good West Ham can be, and Carroll on his day is almost unstoppable.
Speaking of Arsenal, they've got Crystal Palace at home in the late game on the Sunday night. How do you see your mob going, Cruyff?
I don't think I'll be seeing them if it's a late game on Sunday night. Against Palace at home, I don't think there's any excuse why we shouldn't win. Palace, as we've seen, haven't been in the best of form. They've recorded their first win last week this year. So, and I think being at the Emirates, we should have too much for them. I'm going to say 3-1 or 3-0.
Cooksen?
Yeah, I'd probably say Arsenal to win. I mean, Palace has dropped off a bit, and you expect the quality of Arsenal with Ozil and Sanchez to shine through, so Arsenal 3-0.
Of course, this is the sort of game that you would just expect Arsenal to go out and drop points in. Everything's sort of pointing towards them winning the game, and you could see maybe a 2-2 draw, I suspect, with Crystal Palace.
It's not surprising. Yeah. Don't remind me, thanks.
What do we make of, I think, what was some weird rumour that Ozil was going to Arsenal, but I think it was, Ozil going to Barca.
Yeah,
I think it was from Faith, so...
Or was it Type Club or someone? I think I remember seeing that.
He loves. Honestly, I think he loves Arsenal too much to leave right now. I assume these of you have him on Facebook, but he posts a lot of stuff about Arsenal and how much he likes the club and how much fun he has there and whatnot. But I think it'd take another poor season for him to consider leaving.
Yeah. That will be. It'll be interesting because obviously those players want to compete at the top end of the league, and it's hard. You'd hope that Arsenal can sort of make another signing or two in the off season and really sort of compete for the title, but it's quite damning that they've sort of fallen away so much to Leicester and Spurs in the title race, I suppose.
That's a whole another can of worms altogether, that our title so-called charge this season. But when you look at how poor the big teams have done, this should have been the year we come back on top and really show that we can win the league and whatnot. But it just it hasn't to be. So it is disappointing from an Arsenal perspective. But I think we really need to consolidate our team in the transfer window and make the signings we need to give us that
extra push we need to push for Travis on multiple fronts. Tuesday morning at 5 a.m. we have Stoke up against Spurs, and I think JD on the board said that at any other time you'd travel to Spurs and be happy to settle for a point. But this stage of the season, with what's on the line, they really need to be going out and winning every game, and they're certainly in some pretty decent form at the moment, so I wouldn't put it past them to keep on winning at Stoke. How do you see it, Cooksen?
Well, it could be a tough one. I mean, Stoke, there are a good chance to take this game and win it. I mean, they still do have some quality players up front, but you'd expect Spurs to win. But I know it really does depend on the previous result for the West Ham Leicester. If Leicester lose, I reckon Spurs will win. If Leicester win, I'm going to go for Stoke. I'm going to go for a draw.
Fair enough.
Yeah, bit of a banana skin. I think it'll be very tough for. Stoke's not an easy place to go, and Spurs are in good form. But I think Stoke will be doing everything in their power to get the 3 points themselves. But if Spurs turn it on and play the way we all know they're capable of, you could see them grab the 3 points here.
I'm with Cookson on this one as well. I think if Leicester get the win over West Ham, then I think that could affect Spurs' ability to really push on and beat Stoke. I think it could be a draw or even a Stoke win. But if Leicester are dropping points, I think that'll give Spurs an extra bit of motivation and belief that they can kind of get back into the title race more properly than they are at the moment. So I think there's a lot riding on that one. And then in the rescheduled games, we first got City up against Newcastle, and of course, last time out against Newcastle, Aguero bagged 5 goals. So, could we be in for a repeat performance from the main man?
I know you'd back Man City to just win 3-0. I mean, easy game here. Probably relegate Newcastle, so Man City to win.
And Cruyff?
I'd say City, but I think it would be De Bruyne running amok rather than Kun.
It's amazing when you look at the highlights of the Southampton Newcastle game with the way that Shane Long was able to just stroll through their defence. You imagine that someone like De Bruyne or Aguero or even Toure perhaps could just really tear them apart.
What was that score? 6-0? Was that the 6-0?
6-0, I believe it was. Yeah, where Aguero got 5.
Would have been. Yeah, would have been around this time last year. Oh no, I'm talking about a game last season. I think Southampton won a game 6-0.
Oh, the one against Sunderland?
Never mind.
8-0?
Yeah, maybe it was Sunderland. Yeah. But yeah, no, I remember the Newcastle game. Sorry, got my wires crossed. But yeah, I think Aguero has lost it a bit since his injury, and yeah, I think it would be De Bruyne will be the one to watch.
West Ham up against Watford. At that point, West Ham might be sort of ruled out of the top 4 race, I suppose. They're already sort of on the brink, I guess. But this could be an important game for them to win. Do we see them sort of pretty straightforward victory for West Ham?
Yep, hammers.
Yep. Should be a simple victory for them.
Probably the biggest game in some senses of these rescheduled games is the Merseyside derby between Liverpool and Everton, of course, as opposed to the other Merseyside derbies. At home for Liverpool. We've already discussed.
Yeah, Liverpool.
Yeah.
Liverpool, especially at home. I mean, Coutinho, Firmino, they'll have a field day against that shaky Everton defence, I think.
Jagielka's out with a hamstring injury as well.
Yeah, well, magnifies the problems even more.
Cookson?
I think they'll absolutely run by it.
I think it'll be a 1-0 victory to Liverpool. I mean, it is a derby and you expect it to be close.
I reckon it'll be a 3 or 4-0, to be honest.
I reckon Everton might get on the score sheet, but
I can just see it being all Liverpool, but I mean, I guess we'll wait and find out. But being at Anfield as well really gives them the edge. They'll have the crowd behind them, and Everton we know are absolute crap at the back. And against the quick movement of Coutinho, Firmino, Sturridge plays Origi, they're going to have a lot to deal with.
Interestingly, the last Merseyside derby was Rodgers' last game as manager, so this is Klopp's first Merseyside derby. So it'll be an interesting occasion. United at home against Crystal Palace, your mob cookie in action once again. Another game where you'd really be under a bit of pressure to get a result in that one. Do you think you'll get over Palace at home?
I think we should. We probably will. Probably just a very scrappy 1-0 victory. But what was it? I think if Man City win the 2 games they have, that's 10-point lead. And if we lose these 2, I think Van Gaal will be sacked after that. So again, it's probably very interesting. But we should win this 1-0.
I think United should do it at home against Palace. I think it'll be 2-0.
Yeah, I think United should get on top in that one and win it pretty comfortably. Arsenal at home to West Brom, another one that you'd be wanting to looking at winning quite comfortably, Cruyff.
Yeah, I'd be very disappointed and annoyed if we didn't. Particularly again at home. I mean, out of the top 4 sides, we had the easiest run home, and we've botched it. So we really need to just push on, and if we can finish second, we can. I don't expect us to, but we need to just win all our games out from now and try and get as many points as we can and finish as high as we can.
Cooksen, do you see an Arsenal win in this one?
Yeah, I mean, Arsenal should win. I mean, they are probably... Well, they're a pretty good side, as I said earlier.
I guess they're up against West Brom, but I mean they're sort of in that weird spot where they're relatively safe in the top 4, but they're also quite a distance off the top 2, so they're kind of stuck in a bit of no man's land in third spot, I suppose.
But this is reaching the stage where Arsenal tend to play very well and build for next season, so you'd expect them to.
Yeah.
I can't see us finishing below third.
Was it West Brom who played on the last day of last season, Cruyff, and you battered them 4-0 or something, and Walcott got a hat-trick? Or he scored a couple of goals? Was that the previous season?
2 seasons ago, we needed to win to qualify for the Champions League, and Martin Fulop had an absolute nightmare in goal, gifted us the first, terrible on the second or third, and I think we won 3-0 at the Hawthorns, and the Arsenal fans were carrying on like they'd won, or the Arsenal players rather, were carrying on like they'd won the league.
Okay.
After the match.
May 2015 might not have been the final day of the season then. I think it was. Yeah, it was last day of last season. Walcott got a hat-trick and Wilshere also scored.
Oh, then maybe I'm thinking about the season before. Who knows?
There you go. Making me doubt myself, Cruyff. My memory.
Sorry, Mr. Funny Pants.
No worries. Were there any closing thoughts from you boys on the coming round of fixtures?
City Chelsea, I think, will be quite interesting. So it'll be one to watch, I think, and yeah.
Leicester West Ham's also going to be a pretty big one.
Definitely.
Timothy Fosu-Mensah to be a complete gun.
He's looked alright for you guys.
In his 45 minutes.
I should ask you guys, because there's been paper talk about the bids for Andy Robertson, and apparently United are looking to hijack an Arsenal bid for him. And I'll tell you guys, I'd be quite happy for a bit of a bidding war on him, if United and Arsenal both want to go for him.
Well, we need a better left back than Gibbs as a backup anyway. And I mean, I don't know much about Robertson aside from what I've seen in Football Manager. Seems quite solid.
And your stint with him in FIFA.
Exactly. If Sky Sports can use FM as a barometer, that means I can too. But I think if we could secure him for a reasonable amount and then offload Gibbs, I wouldn't be against it at all.
I wouldn't mind a
It'd
bit
be
of a
more-
money and swap. I'd be happy to take Gibbs, but I think he'd probably want a bit of a higher level. But you can always hope.
it'd be a very weird signing for us, considering we have Luke Shaw,
Yes,
Right.
then we have Borthwick Jackson as a reserve,
it did cross my
and they're
mind. But
pretty young.
having United's name linked was a bit of an odd one, given how many left backs you have. But you know, whether it's his agent trying to drum up a bit of interest and get a move, who knows? But it's going to be a very interesting summer for Hull, I suspect, whether or not we go up. But thanks for coming on, boys.
Thank you.
Been a lot of games to preview. We've got all of those double games coming up. But thank you all for listening in. And until next time, hopefully your side wins. And we'll see you on the forums.